everyone. Before we dive in, be sure to drop your thoughts, feelings, and lessons in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's get into it. My wife left me on a hospital gurney like I was an inconvenience she could schedule around, then smiled at her family and whispered to me, "Do not embarrass me, be a man." Here's how it happened. The ER lights were too bright, the kind that make everyone look guilty and tired at the same time. A nurse tightened the blood pressure cuff on my arm, and the Velcro rip sounded louder than it should have. I kept my face still because I've spent my whole adult life learning that panic doesn't solve problems, it multiplies them. My wife, Sabrina Caldwell, stood at the foot of the bed with her purse already on her shoulder. Her mother, Renee Watkins, hovered behind her like a supervisor waiting to sign off on my humiliation. Sabrina's public voice was honey. "He's okay," she told the nurse, smiling with those bright, camera-ready teeth she used for clients. Then she leaned closer to me, lowered her voice, and her eyes went flat. "Don't start acting weak. My mom is out there." My mouth tasted like metal. I tried to speak, but my throat felt dry, like I'd been running in winter air. Renee scoffed. "This is what happens when you marry a man who gets stressed at a warehouse," she said loud enough for the curtain to hear. I wasn't at the hospital because I wanted sympathy. I was there because my body finally forced me to stop pretending everything was fine. Earlier that day, my hands had started shaking over the dispatch tablet at work. The warehouse floor in South Philly was loud, forklifts whining, pallets thumping, radios crackling. But the noise went far away for a second, like someone turned down the world. My supervisor saw me grip the desk and sway. "Terrence, sit down," he said. I tried to laugh it off. Next thing I knew, an ambulance crew was asking my name. On that gurney, with my wedding ring feeling too tight from the swelling in my fingers, I watched my wife scan her phone instead of my face. Her acrylic nails made that fast, irritated tap, tap, tap on the screen. That tapping was one of her calls. Sabrina tapped when she was bored. She tapped when she was lying. She tapped when she wanted you to hurry up and stop being a problem. The nurse asked who was picking me up if I got discharged. Sabrina didn't even look up. "He'll call an Uber," Renee answered for her, like I was a child who forgot his lunch. Sabrina finally looked at me and did a little sigh that felt practiced. "I have meetings," she said, like that explained everything. Then, with a sweet little laugh for her mother's benefit, she added, "You're fine. Don't be dramatic." I wasn't dramatic. I was trying not to fall apart in front of people who wanted to see me small. The last thing Sabrina did before she left was fix my blanket like a prop. She smoothed it, kissed my forehead like a photo op, and whispered, "Don't call me unless you're dying. I'm not babysitting." Then she stepped out, her heels clicking down the hallway, and her family followed her like a parade. The curtains swayed. The beeping monitor kept time. I stared at the ceiling tiles and felt something inside me go cold. Not rage. Clarity. That clarity didn't come from nowhere. It came from months of little cuts that never bled enough for anyone else to notice. I'm a logistics manager. My brain is built for patterns, where delays start, where problems repeat, which small mistake becomes a big failure if you ignore it. In my world, you don't wait for a catastrophe to act. You track. You adjust. You prevent it. But at home, I've been doing the opposite. I've been absorbing disrespect like it was the price of peace. Before it got ugly, it was good. Not perfect, but good in a way that made me believe in it. Sabrina and I met at a pop-up market near Fishtown, back when she was still hauling folding tables out of her trunk and smiling at strangers until her cheeks hurt. I was there with my cousin, grabbing candles for my mom. Sabrina teased me for reading the label like it was a contract. "You're the careful type," she said, laughing. "You got a spreadsheet for romance, too?" I told her maybe I did. She liked that. In the early days, Sabrina called me Mr. Schedule like it was a compliment. She liked how steady I was. She liked that I always had gas in the car and money in the account and a plan for the weekend. We'd take the bus into Center City on Saturdays, split a soft pretzel, and people watched like it was a sport. She'd lean her head on my shoulder and whisper little observations about strangers' outfits, like she was narrating the city. Sometimes, late at night, we'd dance in our kitchen to old R&B with socks sliding on the floor. I'm not a romantic performer. I'm the kind of man who shows love through routines. I bring Sabrina coffee the way she liked it, light sugar, extra cream, before she even asked. I'd fill her tank without telling her. I'd wake up early, pack my lunch, and leave a sticky note on the counter. Have a good day. Proud of you. She kept those notes at first. She'd stick them in the fridge like trophies. That version of her felt like home. We got married quietly in a small church in West Philly. Nothing flashy. No viral moments. Just family, food, and a preacher who looked me dead in the eyes and said, "A marriage is protection, not performance." Sabrina squeezed my hand and smiled like she meant it. Her mother cried that day, which should have warned me, because Renee Watkins rarely cried for anything that didn't increase her influence. But I didn't question it. I wanted peace. I wanted a family. I wanted to believe. The shift started when Sabrina's business started making real money, enough for her to stop calling it a side hustle and start calling it my brand. She changed the way she spoke, not just what she said. She got sharper, faster, like everything was a negotiation and she was always trying to win. When she got stressed, she didn't get quiet like me. She got mean. And when her family saw that money, they moved closer. Renee started showing up unannounced. Cousin Naomi started helping. Everybody had opinions about what I should be doing. Renee's favorite phrase was boss energy. She said it like it was scripture. If you didn't have boss energy, you weren't worthy of respect. The first time she said it to me, we were at a diner off Baltimore Avenue, waiting for our food. Renee looked me up and down, then looked at Sabrina. "Are you really okay being with a man who clocks in for somebody else?" she asked. Sabrina laughed like it was harmless. I didn't. I stared at my water glass and tried to swallow the heat in my throat. Sabrina leaned across the table and squeezed my hand, but her squeeze felt like a warning, not comfort. "Don't take her seriously," she mouthed. Then out loud she said, "Terrence is stable." That's cute. Cute. Like I was a pet. Later in the car, I told her quietly that wasn't funny. Sabrina stared out the window and said, "You're too sensitive." She's just honest. That word, honest, became her permission slip for disrespect. The next trigger was apologies. Sabrina stopped giving them. If she snapped at me, it was my fault for pushing her. If she forgot something important, it was my fault for not reminding her correctly. If she hurt me, it was my fault for taking it wrong. One night, she accused me of flirting with a woman at my barbershop because she saw a smile in a photo on the shop's Instagram. "So you out here entertaining people now?" she asked, voice sweet but eyes hard. I told her, "That's my barber's page." She didn't care. "Men lie," she said, shrugging like it was science. "I know how y'all are." I asked, "So you don't trust me?" She rolled her eyes. "Don't make this deep." Then she walked past me and called out, "Naomi, tell him." Naomi, her cousin, sat on our couch like she lived there. She looked at me over her phone and said, "If you have nothing to hide, why are you so defensive?" I wasn't defensive. I was stunned that my own house had turned into a courtroom with no judge. Sabrina started talking down on my job, like the work didn't matter. Like it wasn't the reason we had insurance in the first place. She'd come home buzzing from an event and say, "I met a man tonight who owns 3 properties. He's on a whole different level." Then she'd look at me like she was checking to see if that hurt. When I didn't react, she'd push harder. "Have you ever thought about being more ambitious?" she'd ask. I'd say, "I am ambitious. I run operations. I manage people and budgets." She'd laugh. "That's not ambition. That's obedience." The public disrespect crept in like mold. At a family cookout in Cobbs Creek Park, I was at the grill flipping chicken, doing what I always do, taking care of details so everything runs smooth. Sabrina stood with her cousins, sipping a drink, and announced, "Terrence is great at following instructions. That's why logistics are perfect for him." Everyone laughed like it was a harmless joke. I felt my face get hot. I forced a smile because that's what calm men do when they're trying not to explode. Later, I told her it embarrassed me. She said, "Man up." "Man up" became her broom. She used it to sweep my feelings out of the room. If I said I was tired, she'd say, "Man up." If I said I needed respect, she'd say, "Man up." If I said, "Do not talk to me like that," she'd tilt her head and say, "You really going to act like a victim?" That word, victim, was another one she used like a weapon. It made me feel ashamed for even wanting basic decency. And shame is dangerous. Shame makes you quiet when you should speak. Sabrina expected everything while giving little effort at home. She stopped cooking, stopped cleaning, stopped contributing to the emotional work of our marriage. If the trash overflowed, it was my fault because I walked past it. If the laundry piled up, it was my fault because I don't see it. But if I asked her for anything, she acted like I was asking for her organs. I'm building a business, she'd say. I'm not about to be your maid. I wasn't asking for a maid. I was asking for partnership. When conflict hit, names showed up. Not the kind you can laugh off. The kind that leaves a mark. You're weak, she said one night when I told her to stop bringing Naomi into our arguments. You're soft. You let people run over you, and then you want a pity party. I stared at her and felt my chest tighten. I said, don't call me that. She smirked. Or what? That smirk, Sabrina's smirk, wasn't cute. It was a dare. The threats followed. They didn't come screaming or crying. They came calm, almost bored. I'll leave, Sabrina said, scrolling her phone. I can do better than this. Sometimes she'd say, I can replace you, like she was talking about a car part. Renee backed her up. Renee would sit at our kitchen table with her purse in her lap, like she was waiting for a meeting to start, and say, Sabrina doesn't have to settle. She's a catch. You need to keep up. Keep up. Like marriage was a race, and I was behind. The funny thing is I did keep up. I kept up financially. I kept up emotionally. I kept up with her family's constant presence in our space. I kept up with Sabrina's mood swings. I kept up with her social calendar, events, meetings, dinners, pop-ups, while I worked long shifts, managed shipments, dealt with drivers calling out, and still came home to mop floors. I kept up until my body tapped out. And when my body tapped out, Sabrina treated it like disrespect toward her schedule. My routines were the only thing that kept me steady. Every morning, I'd wake up before sunrise, even on weekends. Black coffee, oatmeal, weather check. Then I'd sit at the small kitchen table with my notebook, green cover, pen clipped to it, and I'd write 3 things: what I needed to handle at work, what I needed to handle at home, and one thing I was grateful for. At first, Sabrina used to tease me. You, in those little lists, she'd say, kissing my cheek. Later, she started mocking it. Look at you journaling like a teenager, she'd say, laughing at me in front of Naomi. I ignored red flags too long. That's my flaw. I thought staying calm would inspire her to calm down too. I thought love meant patience. I thought if I didn't give her conflict to fight with, she'd eventually get tired and return to who she used to be. Instead, my calm became a target. They treated my quiet like weakness and kept pushing to see where I'd break. The cruelest part is that I didn't break loudly. I broke up privately. I broke my chest, in my sleep, in the way my hands started shaking at work. The hospital incident didn't just happen. It was the end of a long chain. The week before, Sabrina accused me of hiding money because I told her we needed to slow down spending. She wanted to invest in new event equipment, lighting rigs, backdrops, a van. We're doing this, she said. I asked to see the numbers. She stared at me like I insulted her. You don't believe in me, she said. You're jealous. Jealous. Me, the man paying half the bills and washing her dishes. I told her I'm not jealous. I'm careful. She snapped. Careful is another word for scared. Then she called Renee, put her on speaker like she needed reinforcement. Renee's voice boomed through our kitchen. Terrence, you holding my daughter back. I've seen men like you. You want her to stay small so you can feel big. I try to speak. Sabrina cut me off. Don't argue with my mom, she said. You always make things worse. That's when I felt it. This shift, like I was living in a marriage where my voice didn't count. The night before I went to the hospital, I came home late from the warehouse because a shipment got delayed and we had to reroute trucks around an accident on I-95. I walked in and found Naomi and Renee sitting at our table, eating takeout from my favorite corner spot like it was theirs. Sabrina stood at the counter, tapping her nails, eyes bright in that dangerous way. We need to talk, she said. Renee looked at me like I was an employee clocking in late. Naomi smirked like she couldn't wait. Sabrina said, I need you to sign something. I asked, what is it? She said, just paperwork for the business. It's routine. I've read contract for work. I've watched people lose everything because they signed what they didn't understand. I said, "Let me read it." Sabrina's smile tightened. "Why are you acting like this?" she asked. Renee jumped in. "Because he's insecure," she said. Naomi laughed. "He wants to feel important." My stomach sank. I said, "I'm not signing anything without reading it." Sabrina's eyes flashed. "Then you don't support me." The argument didn't get loud. It got cold. Sabrina stared at me and said, "You're supposed to be my husband. You do what I need." I replied, "A husband isn't a blank signature." That was the first time I heard myself talk back with that kind of firmness. Renee's eyes narrowed. "Oh, so now you got a backbone," she said. Sabrina took a breath and said the threat like she was ordering coffee. "If you don't sign, I'll find somebody who will." Then she turned and walked away like I didn't exist. I stood there, heart pounding, trying not to shake. The next day at work, my chest felt tight. My hands wouldn't stay steady. I tried to push through because that's what I do. I kept telling myself I just needed food, sleep, water, basic maintenance. But by noon, the warehouse noise started swimming. I felt sweat on my neck. My supervisor asked if I was okay. I lied and said yes. Then my knees went weak and I had to grab the desk. That's when my supervisor called the ambulance anyway. It was humiliating in its own way, being the calm one who suddenly isn't. Sabrina arrived at the hospital dressed like she was going to brunch. Clean makeup, neat hair, confidence in every step. She hugged the nurse with her eyes, smiled, and played the role. When the nurse left, Sabrina's face changed. "Why would you do this today?" she snapped. I whispered, "I didn't choose this." She leaned closer. "My client meeting is in an hour," she said. "You better not keep me here." Then Renee arrived, and the room got smaller. Renee didn't ask if I was okay. She asked, "What did he eat? What did he do? He probably did this to himself." That's when Sabrina said, "Man up," in that soft hiss meant only for me, and left me there. The humiliation wasn't just being sick. It was being treated like my sickness was a flaw in my character. Like being human was embarrassing. I watched them walk away, my wife and her family, like I was disposable. And on that bed, I decided something simple. I would never again let someone call me weak while standing on what I built. I got discharged later that night with paperwork and instructions and a nurse who looked at me with the kind of pity I didn't want. I took an Uber home because I didn't want to call Sabrina and beg for basic decency. When I got home, the apartment felt like someone else's life. Perfume in the air, lights on, laughter from the living room. Naomi was on my couch, feet up. Sabrina looked at me and said, "See, you're fine. No apology, no concern, just irritation that I survived and ruined the drama they wanted." That night, I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I went into the bathroom, ran cold water, and stared at my face in the mirror. I looked older than I felt. My eyes looked tired in a way I didn't recognize. I realized I'd been trying to earn respect from people who benefited from disrespecting me. They needed me quiet. They needed me to be stable. They needed my credit clean. They needed my calm because it covered their chaos. And I realized something else. In logistics, when inventory goes missing, you don't accuse at random. You audit. So I audited my marriage like it was a failing supply chain. I started with what I could verify: accounts, statements, documents, patterns. I didn't do it like a spy movie. I did it like a man protecting his life. I opened my laptop at the kitchen table before dawn, coffee steaming, jazz low, and pulled up our joint bank statements. At first, I told myself I was just checking. Then I saw it. Transfers. Repeated. Same amounts. Always labeled vague things like vendor or support. And the recipient names were familiar. Renee Watkins. Naomi Watkins. I felt my stomach drop, but I didn't move. That's my skill, staying still while things fall apart. I wrote the dates in my green notebook. I highlighted them in a spreadsheet the way I highlight delayed shipments. I cross-referenced those transfers with Sabrina's event calendar. In weeks she claimed she was struggling, the transfers increased. On weeks she came home bragging about big clients, the transfers still happened. It wasn't one mistake. It was a system. And systems don't happen by accident. I checked our credit. That's when I found the first crack that turned into a canyon. A new account I didn't recognize. A business line of credit with my name attached. I stared at the screen, so long my eyes burned. I told myself it had to be a mistake. but the numbers were too real. The inquiries were too recent. I felt that familiar warehouse feeling. The moment you realize a whole pallet is missing and someone has been lying about it. I didn't accuse Sabrina yet. I gathered facts. Over the next week, I became two versions of myself. At work, I was Terrence, the calm manager, steady voice, making sure deliveries landed where they were supposed to. At home, I was quiet, observant, listening. I watched Sabrina's habits. The tapping nails when she got nervous. The way she kept her phone face down around me. The way Naomi always found a reason to be in our apartment, posted up like a guard. I watched Renee's eyes track our kitchen like she was evaluating what she could take. And I stopped explaining myself. Sabrina noticed. "Why are you so quiet?" she asked one night, chewing on the end of a straw like she was bored. I said, "I'm tired." She smirked. "Tired of what? You don't do anything." I almost laughed at the absurdity. Instead, I nodded slowly and said, "Okay." That made her uneasy. Sabrina thrived on reaction, defensiveness, pleading, anger. When I gave her nothing, she had to sit with her own noise. She started pushing harder, throwing sharper insults like she could shake a response out of me. She tried to bait me in front of people too. At her cousin's birthday dinner in a small restaurant near University City, Sabrina raised her glass and said, "Shout out to my husband, who thinks spreadsheets are a personality." Everybody laughed. I smiled politely. Renee added, "He should spread his way into a promotion." Naomi giggled. I kept my face calm and said, "I like order." That was it. Later, Sabrina snapped in the car. "You think you are better than us?" I said quietly, "No. I think I'm done being laughed at." That sentence changed the air. Sabrina's voice went soft, dangerous soft. "You're not going anywhere," she said. "You couldn't even survive one hospital visit without making it everybody's problem." I stared ahead at the red lights, hands steady on the wheel, and felt something settle in me. Not hatred, decision. I met with the credit counselor first because I wanted facts and options, not emotions. Then I met with a lawyer. I didn't tell Sabrina. I didn't threaten. I just moved. The lawyer was a black woman with a calm voice and a look that said she'd seen men like me coming too late. She asked, "Have you signed anything you didn't read?" I said no. She nodded. "Good. Now we document everything." She told me to freeze my credit. She told me to separate finances. She told me to stop sharing access. The next morning, I changed my direct deposit at work. I opened a new account at a different bank. I moved my paycheck there. I kept paying the bills I was responsible for because I wasn't trying to be reckless. I was trying to be clean. I updated my beneficiaries because I didn't trust the idea of my life insurance becoming a reward for disrespect. I moved important documents, passport, birth certificate, old pay stubs, into a small lockbox at my office. I started taking pictures of mail that showed up with unfamiliar logos. Quiet work. Sabrina kept playing games while I built my exit like a careful plan. She'd pick fights over nonsense, then call Renee on speaker. "Tell him," she'd say, and Renee would come in hot. "Terrence, you are replaceable," Renee said one afternoon while I was washing dishes. "Sabrina is a star. You are background." Sabrina watched me like she wanted me to snap. I kept washing the dish. I said, "If you're a star, you don't need to dim anybody to shine." Sabrina slammed her palm on the counter. "Stop talking like you're wise," she yelled. Naomi escalated too. She started helping with Sabrina's paperwork at our table, spreading documents out like she owned the space. One evening I walked in and saw my name printed on a page, bold, official looking. I paused. Naomi quickly slid her hand over it. "It's nothing," she said. Sabrina gave me that tight smile. "We're handling business," she said. "Go sit down." That was the moment I knew it wasn't just disrespect. It was a strategy. They wanted my name attached to Sabrina's business like a safety net. They wanted my clean life to absorb their risk. I didn't confront them at that moment because I wanted them to be careless. People get sloppy when they think you're powerless. Instead, I waited until everyone left. Then I checked the trash. That's not glamorous. That's real. I found shredded pieces of a document that mentioned personal guarantee. My name was on it. Not signed by me, but typed. I felt a cold spread through my arms. I sat at my kitchen table in the dark and listened to the refrigerator hum. That hum felt like the only honest thing in the room. Over the next few weeks, the consequences started unfolding, slow, like a leak turning into a flood. Vendors began calling the house phone, asking about payments Sabrina claimed were sent. Sabrina would roll her eyes and say, "They're dramatic." Then she'd call them back in her sweet voice and say, "It's processing." Processing became her favorite lie. Then chargebacks hit. I saw the notifications in our joint account. Money yanked back, fees stacking. I asked Sabrina about it calmly. She snapped, "Why are you watching my money?" I said, "Because it's touching my life." She said, "You don't control me." That's when I understood how she saw marriage. To Sabrina, marriage wasn't a partnership. It was accessible. Access to stability. Access to credit. Access to a man who would take it quietly while she looked good. And her family backed that because they benefited too. When Sabrina's business was up, Renee bragged about it like she built it. When it was down, they wanted my name to catch it. I found the cleanest proof in the most ordinary place. An email Sabrina forgot to log out of on her home laptop. A bank message about adding an authorized user. My name, my social life, my information. It wasn't a romantic betrayal. It was worse. It was someone weaponizing my identity while treating me like I didn't deserve respect. I printed it. I saved it. I sent it to my lawyer. Then I closed the laptop and made dinner like I wasn't standing in the middle of my own quiet disaster. Sabrina thought my calm meant I didn't know. She got bolder. One night she said, "We should upgrade. This apartment is embarrassing." I asked, "With what money?" She laughed. "Money is everywhere when you know how to move," she said. Then she added, looking me up and down, "You wouldn't get it. You think small." I tasted bitterness in my mouth, but I swallowed it. I asked, "Are you threatening me again?" She shrugged. "I'm just telling you the truth." 2 months after the hospital, I moved out without a dramatic scene. I chose a small apartment in Cherry Hill, quiet street, clean kitchen, no constant visitors. I did it like a man relocating inventory, one box at a time, essentials first, no chaos. I took my clothes, my notebooks, my grandmother's watch, and the framed photo of my late father. I left the couch, the TV, and the extra dishes. Let her keep the props. I kept the peace. The first night of my new place, I cooked rice and chicken and ate standing up because I didn't own a table yet. I felt lighter anyway. Sabrina didn't notice at first how serious it was because she always believed I would come back. She sent a few texts. "Where are you?" Then stopped playing. Then, "You better not embarrass me." That line made me laugh for the first time in weeks. She still thought my biggest fear was public perception. She didn't understand that I had crossed into something deeper, self-respect. The cold karma didn't arrive as fireworks. It arrived as a phone call that turned Sabrina's world gray. I know because she called me right after, voice cracking, trying to sound controlled. "Terrence," she said, "something's wrong with my account." I didn't respond immediately. I let silence do what it needed to do. Then she rushed the words out. "They froze it. They said there are irregularities. They said it's under review." Earlier that day, Sabrina had gotten the call from her bank's risk department. They didn't yell. They didn't accuse me in a dramatic way. They simply did what banks do when numbers don't make sense. They locked the doors. Her cards declined. Her transfers failed. Her vendor payments stopped. A few clients called asking why their deposits were being refunded automatically. Sabrina tried to smile through it, tried to keep her charm, but charm doesn't override a frozen account. And when the money stopped, her family's loyalty got quiet. Renee called me too, which was almost funny. Renee's voice was sharp, but I could hear strain under it. "Terrence," she said like she had the right to say my name like that. "You need to help Sabrina. This is your wife." I replied calmly. "My wife left me at the hospital." Renee tried to bulldoze past that. "That's not the point." I said, "That is the point. Because you taught her that I was disposable." Renee snapped. "Are you punishing her?" I said no. I'm refusing to be used. Sabrina's cousin Naomi sent a long message. Too long. Full of blame, trying to twist the narrative. "You're really going to let her drown?" she wrote. "After everything?" I stared at the screen and felt something like pity, then remembered the shredded guarantee in my trash, the transfers, the smirks. I typed one sentence and deleted it. Then I typed another and sent it. "Do not contact me again." That was it. Not a debate. a boundary. Over the next weeks, Sabrina's business didn't collapse overnight. It bled out slowly, which is what made it devastating. Clients got nervous. Vendors demanded cash up front. Contracts got canceled because payments couldn't clear. Reviews didn't need to be posted online for it to hurt. It hurt in quieter ways. Missed opportunities, unanswered calls, meetings that didn't get booked. The bank asked for documentation Sabrina couldn't provide because some of the numbers were built on my name and her family shortcuts. When systems are crooked, the stress test always exposes them eventually. Sabrina tried every version of herself to pull me back into the role she needed. First, she tried sweets. "I miss you," she said, voice soft. "We can fix this." Then she tried sexy, then guilty, then angry. "So you're really going to do this?" she snapped. "You think you're better than me?" I replied, "No. I think I deserve a marriage where my health isn't an inconvenience." She tried to cry. "You're abandoning me," she said. I said, "You left first." The most revealing moment came when she finally admitted what she actually wanted. "I just need you to talk to them," she said. "I need you to tell them it's okay, that you're part of this. Part of this. Not 'I'm sorry.' Not 'I was wrong.' Not 'I hurt you.' Just sign off." That's when I realized her love had conditions and paperwork. I told her calmly, "I will not attach my name to your choices anymore." Renee showed up at my job one afternoon, which was bold. She stood near the office entrance with her purse tucked under her arm, like she was waiting to lecture an employee. My coworkers glanced over. I walked out and met her on the sidewalk, not angry, just done. Renee said, "You always wanted to be the good guy. Look at you now." I smiled a little. "I'm being the good guy," I said. To myself. Renee's eyes narrowed. "Sabrina says you're doing this out of spite." I replied. She would call accountability spite. Sabrina's cold karma wasn't just the money. It was the loss of control. Where finances got reviewed, the helpers vanished. Naomi stopped answering Sabrina's calls. Renee stopped showing up with advice and started showing up with blame. Sabrina had to sit in the silence she used to throw at me. She had to feel what it's like when the person you rely on says nothing and walks away. That kind of consequence doesn't trend online. It just changes your life. My life got quieter in a different way. I kept my routines, but they felt like they belonged to me again. I bought a small table and put it by the window. I cooked real meals instead of eating standing up. I took late-night walks listening to jazz, letting the cold air clear my head. I started sleeping through the night without waking up to check if someone was mad at me for existing. I journaled honestly for the first time, not gratitude to survive disrespect, but gratitude for choosing myself. The divorce paperwork moved like most real consequences do, slow, boring, effective. I didn't brag. I didn't threaten. I followed instructions and deadlines the way I always do. Sabrina tried to delay, tried to negotiate, tried to guilt me into being a man one last time. But that phrase didn't work anymore. It sounded childish, coming from someone who couldn't apologize. The final conversation happened in a quiet coffee shop in Jersey, neutral territory. Sabrina arrived dressed like she always did, polished, confident, trying to control the room. But her eyes looked tired. Her nails still tapped the cup when she got nervous. She sat across from me and said, "So this is it?" I looked at her and felt something complicated. Sadness for what we could have been, anger for what she chose, relief for what I escaped. Then I said, "This was at the day you left me at that hospital." Sabrina's lips parted like she wanted to argue, but no argument fit. She tried one last push. "You act like you never did anything wrong," she said. I nodded. "I did," I said. "I stayed quiet too long. I let your family sit in my house and talk to me like I was nothing. I called it peace, but it was fear." Sabrina's eyes flickered. For a second, I saw the woman I first loved, the one who laughed freely, who danced in the kitchen. Then it disappeared behind pride. When we stood to leave, Sabrina whispered, "I hope you're happy." I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just told the truth. "I'm learning how to be," I said. Outside, the air was cold and clean. Cars hissed on wet pavement. I walked to my car, feeling steady in my body in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. Sabrina never got the big public downfall she always feared. No viral shame. No dramatic scene. Just quiet consequences that matched the quiet harm she thought she could hide under charm. Her business limped along, smaller, mistrusted, and watched. Her family stopped bragging. She learned what it feels like to have doors closed without anyone yelling. And me? I went back to my routines, back to my steady life, back to a version of calm that wasn't endurance, it was freedom. The last time Sabrina texted me, it was a simple message. Can we talk? I stared at it, felt nothing spike in my chest, and finally understood what closure really is. Then I set my phone down and kept living. If this story hit you in the chest, do me a favor. Subscribe because these aren't fairy tales, they're real-life lessons. Which part was the turning point for you? The hospital disrespect, the shredded guarantee, or the frozen bank call? Drop in the comments. And when you're done, click the next video on screen. It's even crazier, and it starts with humiliation, just like this one. The end.